Today, cryptocurrencies are back in the red. The Senate Agriculture Committee released a draft of the long-awaited crypto market structure bill, and Visa's Mark Nelson breaks down the payment giant's latest step forward in stablecoin adoption. Welcome to CNBC's Crypto World. I'm Talia Kaplan. Cryptocurrencies are back in the red this morning, with Bitcoin falling to the $101,000 level by noon Eastern. Ether is also headed lower, falling below $3,400, and XRP dropped to $2.34. And taking a look at stablecoin issuer Circle, its stock dropped 11% after the company posted its third quarter earnings. Profits beat estimates, but the company raised its expected operating expenses for 2025. Circle said the change reflected growing investment in its platform amid accelerating market interest. Okay, let's talk about the top stories. The Senate Agriculture Committee released a long-awaited draft of its crypto market structure bill. This week, the bill was unveiled by Committee Chair John Boozman, a Republican representing Arkansas, and Democratic Senator Cory Booker of New Jersey. The draft provides clearer regulatory guidance for some cryptocurrencies, for example, classifying Bitcoin and Ether as digital commodities to be regulated by the CFTC. It also gives the CFTC more power over the digital asset space after the SEC for years took a strong stance on regulating crypto. Of course, that was at the same time the industry and regulators grappled with whether specific tokens were securities or commodities. The market structure draft also includes a provision calling for crypto firms to separate various affiliated businesses similar to TradFi companies. The industry has been awaiting progress on market structure legislation amid accelerating institutional interest in digital assets, but it's still unclear as to whether legislation is on track to pass by year-end, as many in the industry had hoped. Next, JP Morgan is rolling out its deposit token JPMD on Coinbase's Ethereum Layer 2 blockchain. The company announced today that after successful test transactions from digital asset firm B2C2, Coinbase, and MasterCard, the bank's dollar-backed deposit token is available to institutional clients for 24/7 settlements. JPMD is not a stablecoin, but it does represent commercial bank deposits. Now, JP Morgan announced the token back in June, saying at the time that a deposit token created a close connection with the traditional banking system versus a stablecoin. Last, Coinbase is leaving Delaware and reincorporating in Texas. The company's chief legal officer, Paul Grewal, explained the move today in a Wall Street Journal op-ed. In the article, Grewal writes that Delaware's legal framework no longer provides companies with the consistency it once did, pointing to recent decisions in the state's Court of Chancery. Elon Musk started the trend of moving companies out of Delaware after moving Tesla's state of incorporation to Texas last year. Other companies, including Dropbox and TripAdvisor, have made the move as Texas adopts business-friendly reforms to its corporate code. Currently, Coinbase is facing a lawsuit in Delaware concerning sales of shares tied to its 2021 IPO. As of noon, Coinbase shares dipped 0.4%. All right, for our main story, today Visa unveiled a new pilot that allows businesses and platforms to send payouts directly to stablecoin wallets. Recipients will be able to receive their funds in USD-backed stablecoins like USDC. I sat down with Mark Nelson, head of product for Visa's commercial and money movement solutions, ahead of the announcement. He explained why it was important for Visa to move deeper into stablecoins and breaks down how the new pilot works. In a big step forward for stablecoin adoption, Visa is launching a pilot where businesses can send payments directly to the stablecoin wallets of recipients, and those include freelancers and creators. The goal to make the movement of money faster and easier. So can you take us through this pilot? How does it work exactly, and what are some of the other highlights?
Yeah, it starts with Visa Direct. So Visa Direct is our cross-border real-time money movement platform. Today, if you wanted to send money to someone, you could load your bank card into it. You could also use your bank account. But now we're adding stablecoin wallets as a way to receive money. And so if you're a business and you want to send money to your creator, for example, in the market, you can just have them load their stablecoin address and it sends the money to them immediately.
So you mentioned creators.
Yeah.
Who else is the ideal candidate for this pilot?
I mean, there's so many different ways that we would think about this. There's the creators, there's freelancers, there's gig workers. So let's say that you are working for a rideshare program, and you want to get paid daily for whatever you've done for that day. Once again, today, if you want to get paid today, you may have to wait 2 or 3 days if you use the normal banking process. But going forward, you could say to your employer, here's my stablecoin wallet address. I want to receive a portion of my payroll every day on stablecoins. And so they could then receive that in real time, instantaneously. And so it's just so incredible for them to do that. And then with content creators, as you're a content creator, you start to work with people around the world. You could also now receive a stablecoin backed, like a US dollar backed stablecoin, so you can get access to money fast, instantaneously, and then you also then can use that money to invest in your business and grow your business as well.
I love how you brought up those use cases, valuable information. And obviously right now it's a pilot.
Yes.
How long is this pilot going to last? And when do you anticipate it could potentially be available to the masses?
We are starting the pilot in the US, so US-based companies that want to send money to anyone around the world, they could do that. And then in the later half of 2026, we'll be expanding this to more countries as well. And so we encourage people who want to get into this space to contact Visa, and we'll work with them as we start to deploy this globally.
Why was it important for Visa to launch this specific pilot?
Yeah.
I understand you had new research come out from the Visa 2025 Creator Economy Report, which showed faster access to funds is ranked as the top reason digital content creators prefer using digital payment methods. In fact, 57% cited instant access as their leading motivation for choosing digital payment methods to get paid for content creation work. So how much of a factor was this research in your decision, and what other factors were in the mix?
It's incredibly important because it shows that real-time access to money is so important for many people. And so that is one reason, is to how do we get more optionality for people that want funds immediately. Stablecoins is a great technology that enables that. Another reason that we're really interested in this is we have for years been trying to go after the underbanked population. So people who don't have a bank account. Historically, it's been really hard for them to even participate in the digital economy. It would cost them so much money to find intermediaries to go and purchase something online. And so with stablecoin wallets, you can get a stablecoin wallet even if you don't have a bank account, and then you can start receiving money into those wallets and use and access the digital economy. So that was really important for us as well.
So generally speaking, why was it important for Visa to move deeper into the stablecoin space? Obviously, we have seen major developments on the regulatory front here in the US. The Genius Act stablecoin bill was signed into law over the summer.
Yep.
So how much of a factor was that in your decision to move deeper into stablecoins? And obviously, we've seen other regulatory advancements around the world. So how much of a factor is regulatory developments for Visa?
It is absolutely critical because now we have a framework by which we can start to deploy this technology with the right compliance, right tools, right security. So, and it also means the banks and the financial institutions can start to see how do they participate in this. So the regulatory framework has been really important for us. And the other reason is because our role at Visa is to introduce and combine innovation with reliability. And if you think about how we can use our payment network, which has so much speed and reliability and resiliency, and we start to embed these emerging technologies like stablecoins, it lets us get this type of use case more broadly deployed for businesses and consumers around the world in just a much faster and compliant way.
So in September, Visa launched a pilot, a stablecoin pre-funding pilot for businesses.
Yeah.
How does that work exactly? And now that it's been over a month since its launch, how's it going? Are you noticing demand?
So pre-funding is a little bit of a strange concept. So let me just start with the basics.
Sounds good.
So let's say that you're a company and you have maybe 10 different markets around the world that you support, and you have employees in those markets. If you want to pay them, you have to pay them in local currency. So to have local currency, it means you have to have bank accounts and partners that have money in those markets. And so that's all fine and good, but let's say it's a weekend and you have drivers that want to get paid that day, and you start running out of money. And you can't move money on the weekend because the banks aren't open. And so what stablecoins allows these companies to do is position money in real time into those markets so that they can still pay out their employees. And so it really is it's addressing some of the inefficiencies that we have with global cross-border money movement.
And this is also a pilot right now, so when is this going to be available to the public potentially?
It's live now for our APIs, and so what we're doing now is working with partners to help show them how to integrate that into their processes. And so there is a lot of demand, as you can imagine, from companies around the world, because it's easier and faster treasury management. And so it's exciting because people are starting to lean into it because there is more regulatory clarity, so that's helping. And so particularly in the US, and there's other markets around the world that are starting to get that regulatory framework as well. So that will be exciting for us to watch.
And you mentioned more people are getting into it, but also more companies are getting into stablecoins. In fact, your competitor, MasterCard, is integrating stablecoins into its payments network, partnering with companies like crypto companies, I should say, like MoonPay and Circle. So what's your reaction to that? What does that signal to you? Does it show you that more companies are in fact seeing the value of stablecoins, especially as we're seeing these regulatory developments around the world for stablecoins? And how does Visa stack up against the competition?
It's a great question, and yes, I think what we will see is we will partner with many different companies around the world, and largely because you need different licenses depending on where you are. If you want to originate a stablecoin payout, you need a license, and so we will also be partnering with many different folks and just to help expand this globally as quickly as we can. So we think there's really good momentum, there's good excitement. But not to oversell this, I mean, the regulatory clarity is still pretty new. Like the Genius Act passed just a handful of months ago, and so you still have a lot of our biggest partners, our biggest financial institutions thinking, how am I going to introduce this? How am I going to incorporate this into my risk operations, for example? And so it's still kind of early days, but there's so much excitement and energy around this, so we want to be in the front of it.
Now, Nelson also discussed what else can be expected from Visa in the stablecoin and crypto space in the future. You'll be able to check out that full interview with Mark Nelson over at cnbc.com/cryptoworld. Okay, that's all for today. We'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll see you then.